Larry, you've been telling us for weeks to get ready to see some unprecedented political fireworks in Washington, D.C. How you feeling today, Larry?
I'm doing okay, buddy. Doing okay.
It's a tough time of year for you. I know you've got some breathing difficulty, and spring in the South has got to be quite difficult. Glad you could be with us today.
Yes, sir.
And I do want...
Well, it is. This is not... It gets... Anyway, this time of year is tough, especially for somebody with lung issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's go forward. Don't worry about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it's important for people who enjoy listening to the show each week to remember that they can financially support Larry by going over to nicholslive.com and clicking on the donate tab. That's going to lead you to Larry's PayPal address and the information that you need to send him your support. You can use his address, nicholslive@aol.com, to send money via PayPal, or you can stuff a few bucks in an envelope and mail it to him there in Conway, Arkansas. Larry, there's been a lot of back and forth with some of our least favorite Democratic congressional representatives, namely Nadler and the rest of the kooks on the left over there. What do you see happening now that McGahn has defied the congressional subpoena? What's the significance of all this, Larry?
Well, the significance is that all Nadler and Schiff are trying to do is to give some pretext, a pretense for a reason to impeach Trump. That's all they're doing. They're just trying to give the public some logical reason for them to start the impeachment process. And therefore, what they're trying to do, since, what's his name, Trump's attorney,
McGahn,
has testified, McGahn, apparently in his testimony, they think there's a chance to get him in and make him look like he's squeezing McGahn to break the law.
Right. Now, Larry, correct me if I've got this wrong, but Don McGahn was the White House counsel, not Mr. Donald Trump's personal counsel.
Yes.
He's an employee of the government, of the presidency.
Right.
So what are the implications
and
of that?
Well, the implications are, as long as he has that title, the president can order him to not withhold or to not go before the Senate or the House subcommittees investigating stuff. He can, in other words, he falls under.
Well, it's a matter of attorney-client privilege, isn't it? It's not really Donald Trump overreaching in any way.
That's the issue that makes it a little complicated. If he were to pursue it from client-attorney privilege, exactly what you said about him being the quote-unquote White House legal counsel, they're afraid that that might be able to stop him from having executive privilege. I'm sorry, from client-attorney privilege. You got it?
Right.
If he were acting as President Trump's personal attorney, then they could not participate in any further actions based off of client-attorney privilege.
Right.
Not to mention executive privilege. But since he was the lawyer for the White House, they're worried that client-attorney privilege would not be sufficient to withstand any challenges. So
it sounds like a ridiculous.
Will work.
Sounds like a ridiculous argument to me, Larry, because in other words, it's the difference between someone hiring a personal attorney versus having privileged conversations with the general counsel of the company that they work for. And, you know, this is ostensibly a criminal investigation. So if someone had shared things with an attorney for their employer, I think they would still be covered by the attorney-client privilege. But this is the game of lawfare, where what the law is versus how a judge interprets it are two vastly different things. And it seems to me very much that Mr. Nadler and Mr. Schiff are simply, you know, swinging for the fences and hoping, you know, something makes it down the line there.
Well, and remember, never forget this, Jason, and all of you in the audience. Never, never, never forget impeachment. The only reason they're doing impeachment, starting the process, is to damage Trump's ability to be reelected.
Right.
There is no serious thought at this point to actually impeaching him. They know they can't. But they've got to get enough in front of the public so it at least looks like
Right.
they had prima facie sufficient evidence to start the process, and then they intend to drag the impeachment process out all during the election.
Right.
And, you know, people, I see it on the news, all these quote-unquote pundits talking about the pressure on Pelosi to, you know, impeach him, or, you know, the AOC's putting pressure on this. None of that is causing Nancy Pelosi to hold off a decision to impeach President Trump. She is going to impeach President Trump. She is. But what she can't seem to do is get her caucus to slow down so that it times out just right where it'll do the most damage in the campaign.
But Larry, isn't Nancy Pelosi concerned about the political fallout of trying to impeach the president? And then when you say that they won't succeed, you mean it won't make its way through to finding him guilty of something and having him removed? It'll just be a lot of useless gyrations in Congress, which everyone's becoming very used to.
Well, yeah, sort of. I mean, what I'm saying, if you look at it strictly technically, just the technical aspects of it, if they were to start the impeachment, and if they went all the way and had a vote on impeachment, which the House would get today, if they did it, they would get it today.
Yeah.
That would be that the House would vote to put Trump before the Senate in a trial to have him removed
Right.
from office. All right? They could do that next week. They could. So the question then is, why aren't they? Because technically they know that if they got it through the House with him being impeached, they know beyond any shadow of any doubt they do not have enough votes in the Senate to have President Trump removed from office. It's not going to happen. They know it. They know it's not going to happen.
They're also worried
Can't
about it
happen.
backfiring. Aren't they worried that for 2020, if people perceive them as just being maniacally obsessed with impeaching a president who hasn't actually done anything, that it could hurt them in 2020?
They probably are. But you've got to remember we're under a new formula this election season. We're not under the standard formula.
What's
And,
the new formula?
well, 50-50. The old formula was 40-40-20. In all of politics, 40-40-20 is the fundamental basis for all elections. 40% of Democrat, I'm simplifying it, 40% Democrat, 40% Republican, and 20% don't care. They're in the middle, better known as swing voters. And the object of the game, traditionally, is who can get the greatest percentage of the swing voters to go their way. All right? This is the typical election. Well, this one's not that way. We're working under a whole different base. We're operating on a 50-50 basis. Now that causes trouble. Now by 50-50, I mean 50% of these people in this country hate Trump and 50% love him.
Right.
It'd be hard, Jason. You could do it. It'd be hard for you to go out and do a man on the street program and get very many people that would qualify for in the middle.
Right.
But they don't have an opinion or whatever. I bet you if you talk to 100 people, if you got one or two, you would be lucky.
Who are in the middle?
The majority.
It's either love
Yes.
Trump or hate Trump.
That's right. So that's the race. That's the race formula. So if you understand that, then you have to understand what Pelosi and Schumer and all of them have got to do. They've got to do, in essence, the same thing that Trump has to do. You have to work on your soft base. Soft base. That's
What's
where
the
your money
soft
goes.
base?
Soft base.
That's the undecided voters?
No, in President, I'm just going to use Trump, in President Trump's base of all the people that support him, it usually works out to 40% of that base are dyed in the wool. If there's an earthquake, if there's tornadoes, they're going to go vote. You got it? They're going to go vote. But then you've got 60% of his base that are for Trump, no doubt. But they're not into politics. They're not big on politics. Just unless it's affecting them personally, they don't really get all that involved. But generally, they like Trump.
Mm.
That group has a dismal record of actually going and voting.
Right, they just
So
don't
therefore,
show up on election day.
Right. Yeah, if the sun's shining and they want to go fishing, I want to go fishing today, so I'll go, okay, well, what about voting? I'm going to go fishing.
Right.
Now, here's what is scary. Traditionally, in soft-based voting, you're looking 35 to 45% of the soft base will actually vote in an election. 35 to 40%. This time, if Trump is to win, he's going to have 85 to 90, 95% of his soft base going to have to get out and vote.
That seems unrealistic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do
Actually,
we think
it is.
it is realistic or it is unrealistic?
Unrealistic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's... Now, if you seeing this and seeing how impossible the task seems to be, you have to realize also that the Democrats, they got the same problem with their base. They got to get their base to come out and vote. The reason I make it look like Trump's got to have 85 to 95% turnout is because of what sweeteners the Democrats have to get their soft base to vote.
Sweeteners?
Sweeteners. By that, I mean they want to make sure that the black community comes out and votes for their candidate. Well, as you know, turnout in the black community is usually 12, 16% participation. Very low. How are you going to get them to come out and vote? Now, this is the problem the Democrats have. You got to get them to come out and vote. So that's how I knew, before Trump even took office, that the Democrats were going to introduce reparation. You remember, I told you on this program before.
And
Anybody ever heard of it?
that did happen. You were pretty spot on with that, Larry. It was tied pretty closely to that Jussie Smollett. That actually brings me to basically what we've titled the episode today, Socialism Justice, because I did a little play on social justice there, but socialism justice in the DOJ, and I've made this image, Larry, with Robert Mueller depicted as Karl Marx. So what is it that you see happening in the Department of Justice that causes you to feel that it's acting like the justice system of a socialist country?
Well, first, let me conclude the others. So you got the blacks, they got reparation.
Right.
You got millennials, they're going with them with free education, and to cinch it up, they're going with them with paying off all student loans.
And that
And then, of
actually
course,
started
got
the
the whole
other day.
healthcare.
We had
Well, it's,
billionaire.
yeah, with a private person.
Yeah.
He did. I think that's an excellent gesture. I'm tickled about that. I wish more billionaires would do stuff like that. But anyway, so that's the problem with the soft base. Democrats have sweeteners to get their people to vote. Trump does not. All Trump has, and we're doing it, that's what I came up with, never socialism.
Right.
For the first time, people are seeing Democrats actually saying socialism. Now back to your thing about the Justice Department.
Right.
In every country that is solidly under the control of socialism, communism, dictators, one of the signature things they do, if anybody comes up and stands up or stands out against the quote-unquote in situ government, they prosecute them.
Yeah.
They prosecute
For whatever they want.
put them in jail for whatever they want. Now, if there's something they can find, they'll go and look, and then if they don't find anything, guess what? They'll just make it up.
Mm-hmm.
And they can do that when you control the prosecutors and the judges. Now, if you or I had some accusation we were trying to make against some person, and we didn't have really any evidence other than we just think he did,
Right.
you'd never get a prosecutor to take the case. And if you can't get a prosecutor to take the case and present it, then it don't go.
Yeah, I mean, frequently, Larry, even when you have supportive evidence to back up your accusations, things go nowhere simply because the wheels of justice are so slow to turn.
Well, they're slow to turn, but more than slow to turn. You're seeing the first signs of what America in a socialized world is going to be like, socialism world. You're seeing it now. You're seeing it through the Justice Department. The courts are doing anything they want to do. The prosecutors are doing anything they're told to do. Let me give you an example of that. They now claim 900 federal prosecutors, 900 federal prosecutors believe that with the evidence that came out of the Mueller report, that Trump should be indicted. How the hell did they get 900 prosecutors, federal prosecutors, to do that?
I don't know.
Well, I do.
How?
They were just, number one, if they even did talk to anybody, I don't know that I trust them even talking to anybody, canvassing anyone. I don't even know if they did it.
Yeah.
But it shows you what I'm trying to tell you. It shows you that the Justice Department is already under the rule of the collective. And the collective in this case being the Democratic Party, the progressives, the deep state, whatever you want to call it. They can block you from getting somebody prosecuted. And if they don't like somebody, they can get you prosecuted even where nothing exists.
Yeah.
And that is a practice done every day in a country that's socialism or communism, or under that of a dictator.
Well, it's tyranny, of course. Yeah, tyranny. I mean, there's an article today, Larry, in the Washington Examiner, which, according to this article, only 51% of Americans say socialism would be a bad thing. And it's kind of crept up on us because, in my view, the first exposure to this was we heard about social justice warriors. And of course, that sounds fine. Justice, everybody wants justice. And social sounds like, well, you know, we're going to socialize. It's not good to be antisocial. So social justice. They're very good at coming up with these statements that sound good on the surface, but actually hide their true meaning. Like, I remember when Barack Obama was running for president, there was a lot of criticism that his only background, his only experience was as a community organizer. And I remember very distinctly thinking, community organizer, I mean, what is that? Is he like putting together picnics and barbecues and teaching kids how to play basketball at the Y or something? Like, what is a community organizer? But we now know that that is a direct call to Marxist Alinskyites, that he is a disciple of Alinsky, and that community organizing is a social engineering activity.
That's right. Yes. It is. Indeed.
And so we see that happening now with AOC and some of the socialists in Congress.
Well, back to your information about 51%, are worried about socialism. Let me tell you, I don't need that. I got hard numbers to prove that we're dangerously close to to people in this country, certainly not being afraid of socialism, maybe not for it as it is, but they're not afraid of it. And that's the 2016 primary election that I told you about. In that election, you had the Republicans on one side and the Democrats on the other. When you added up Hillary, everybody considers her a communist, socialist, whatever they think, dictator, all of it in one. And you had Bernie Sanders, a professed socialist. They got more votes in the primary than all the Republicans put together. 51% of the people that voted in the 2016 presidential primary, 51% voted for either a communist or a socialist. 51%.
Yeah. And Larry, Comey has come out and said that he's been part of the Communist Party, or he voted for a communist candidate or something like that. What's with all these communists running the FBI and the CIA?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Look, the new breed, that's why, Jason, remember when I told you in the audience about the first complete generation? The first complete
Remind us
generation.
of that. Remind us.
What that means is it's the first class that from the day they entered the classroom, kindergarten or whatever, until the last day they left the classroom in college or however far they went. During that whole educational period of time, they were socially engineered. Socially engineered.
Yeah.
That's why millennials don't fear socialism. What should have been taken care of in their education should have been that certainly they learned the difference between capitalism and socialism. They should have learned, as we did, that our constitutional representative form of government far surpasses that of socialism. They should have learned in the classroom that if you become a socialist country, what's wrong? All the other countries in history that turned to socialism ended up to some degree like Venezuela.
Or worse.
They should have learned that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, Larry, when you've got people like the Clintons and the Bushes and now the Obamas spending the last 30, 40, 50 years basically sucking out the value of the dollar, transferring that wealth from the people of the United States to international corporations that they all sit on the board of directors for or receive tremendous financial contributions to their illegal 501c3 corporations from. It takes the money away from the collective population of America. I think everyone would agree that the dollar's buying power has decreased dramatically over the last 40 years, and that puts every regular person in the United States who's not a tremendous millionaire or billionaire or something like that at a disadvantage where they can kind of creep in this attitude that, hey, I might be better off if I was unwilling to work and had some guaranteed income from the government.
And see, that's all socialism is. It's just a promise of utopia.
Right.
That's all it is. It's a promise. But if you study, you'll find that it don't really ever work out that way.
Well, it's a dishonest promise, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
almost a deception.
And then what happens when you've been to countries that I have that are under the thumb of socialism or communism? Look at the faces. Look at the faces of the people. Look at the eyes of the children.
Right.
Jason, they don't even dream. They can't dream of bettering themselves. Because where you start is where you're going to end.
Right. Yeah, it's true. You know, Larry, we've got Big E with us in the comments here. He wants to know why you think Trump hasn't declassified yet.
because he's conferring with his legal people, he's conferring also with his political people, and they have given him good counsel in that the fact that they have held off releasing a bunch of this stuff was good. Had it have come out earlier, it would have been wasted.
Right.
Now, it's going to work. You see, had all of this stuff been unveiled, for example, some of it, not all of it, but if anything had to come out prior to Mueller's report being done, it would be buried. Nobody would ever hear about it.
Well, not only that,
The
they
news
would
of the
say
day
that
was
he's
here.
trying to obstruct the investigation and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So he played it right. Now, whether it was his wisdom that did it or whether it was his counsel from his people he trusts, I don't know. But he did it right. Now, the game has now changed.
Mm-hmm.
It's over. The Mueller report is over. And they're going to do everything in their power. As I told you, the Mueller report was written in such a way to serve the creeps like Nadler and Schiff, serve them on the silver platter. A way to politically, not legally, but politically, to destroy or attempt to destroy President Trump.
Right. It's really sad, Larry, because, you know, we elect these guys to be our representatives in a government that is intended to be of the people, by the people, and for the people. But instead, what it has evolved into is a cushy, lazy person's job where they can do far less work than the average person in the private sector must do to earn the salary that they earn. And they actually don't even do anything that earns them that money, but rather constantly jockey themselves into positions where they can benefit from their political influence or create some sort of very lucrative position for themselves to get into after they leave politics. I want to talk for a minute about Republican from Georgia who has been getting a lot of attention lately. I'm talking about Doug Collins. He's been releasing lots of information. He's the ranking member on the Judiciary Committee that's been meeting today, and the big flap there, of course, was Don McGahn not testifying before the committee. I'm pretty sure it was Representative Collins who was making a pretty big deal about the fact that almost everything that Nadler is asking for is either unprecedented, illegal, or just pure political posturing. So it's interesting for people to see that these committees aren't addressing any of the concerns of the people of the United States, but rehashing. I mean, when I say that, I mean stuff with the border, making new laws about social media and censorship that's happening in social media, which actually reminds me, Larry, you know, people who are viewing us right now on YouTube should be going over to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, because there's a huge movement afoot to take conservative voices off of some of the social media platforms on the internet. Our friend Laura Loomer has been absolutely smeared by Facebook, saying she's a dangerous person and taking her off of Facebook. She's been off of Twitter for months. Laura's really been struggling. So it's just pure theatrics that's going on there during these congressional hearings. But yet, as you say, Nadler, Schiff, and the rest of them are just totally content to tie up the time and waste the money and resources of Congress just trying to bash President Trump.
Well, Collins, I saw a clip of him when he did his opening remarks. And he said something that I wish everybody would zoom in on, because he was exactly right. You know, he said, here we are, paraphrasing, of course, here we are doing all of this, and our committee has not done one thing towards immigration, not one thing towards, you know, he listed several things that they are over. And the fact that that committee has not done one bit of work for the people of this country, as they're supposed to. They've devoted their whole committee and all of its energy into being a political weapon to get Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, buddy, I don't see how, this part confuses me, how you can be an American of either persuasion, liberal, conservative, libertarian, whatever. How can you sit back and allow the Democrats to literally abscond, just get away, do away with any of the work they're being paid to do? You know, they have not spent 1 hour on the business of the people.
Right.
In the past 2 years, to be honest.
I know.
Jason, we've got a crisis on the southern border.
Yep.
That I have been told, and I have reason to agree, that as long as we're bringing in 100,000 a month illegals into this country, and then each one of them end up on the average costing $74,000 a year out of the government trough one way or another, we can't keep doing that, because if we do it much longer, Standard & Poor's and the other rating companies are going to drop our credit rating from an A+ to a B+.
Mm-hmm.
Now, buddy, when that happens, you're talking about our economy going to a screeching halt.
Yeah. Well, it seems like they're more interested, Larry, in getting federal judges to side with them about releasing Donald Trump's financial information than they are with solving any of the problems of the country. This is another issue that's fairly unprecedented. Trump, he's not on trial. They're demanding this private information from a guy who, they never demanded Obama's financial information. They never demanded Obama's college records, which are in question, but they're just unrelentingly going after Donald Trump. And it's, people need to remember these representatives who are being very ineffective in terms of representing the people of the United States and trampling the Constitution. I do believe Doug Collins touched on that as well. You can't just go asking for personal information and confidential financial information on people because you don't like them. We have no evidence in this Mueller report that Donald Trump has done any crimes. We have evidence of the contrary. As a matter of fact, right now there's prima facie evidence, Larry, with regard to a major, major failure in the Obama DOJ, in that Loretta Lynch says that she never told Comey to characterize the Clinton email probe as a matter, and Comey says the exact opposite. So definitely one of them is not telling us the truth.
Yeah.
No investigation into either of them.
Right. Look, welcome, see, here we go. Welcome to the world of socialism. Under our constitutional format, the framers of our country, the founding fathers, they set it up on purpose. They realized, what happens, what they had lived through. And they set it up to where somebody's innocent until proven guilty. See, that breaks the bank for socialism. Socialism can't do that. Right. They can't tolerate that. So today, the standard law is you're guilty unless you can prove yourself innocent, but that's if you're on the wrong team. Yeah. So you wonder how people get put into submission in these countries. Let me tell you, that's how they do it. If you dare to challenge the government, then you're going to get prosecuted. And you're going to go to prison, and in most of those kinds of countries, when you go to prison, you're never heard from again.
Right. Well, that happens here as well.
Pretty soon, and pretty soon, you know what? You're told don't stand up.
Right.
You're crazy to stand up.
Well, certainly the people around anyone who that happens to are sort of indirectly given that message. Certainly what's happening to Julian Assange has a chilling impact on other journalists who would seek to reveal the wrongdoing of powerful governments around the world. Assange is in prison, and we heard some testimony from a personal friend of his the other day. Pamela Anderson went to see him in jail in England, and she was visibly shaken when she came out of there, said that he wasn't looking well, and that we need to save his life. So what you're saying about socialist countries. It's you know, it's interesting, Larry. Obviously, you and I are at very different points in our lives, and you grew up at a time in this country that was vastly different than I. I mean, when I was a young kid in the 80s and 90s, that was arguably the most prosperous, financially at least, time period our country has ever experienced. And I mean, I always heard about gulags in the Soviet Union and prisoner camps, you know, political prisoners in China and these other countries. But what's happening to Julian Assange in England at the behest of our government is as bad or worse than any of that. Larry, have I got you?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry, I had the mute on. So
No problem.
yeah, I mean, look, this is what I'm trying to do, Jason. This is what you're trying to do. We're trying to stop it, folks, before it gets any worse.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have far to go. I hope everybody understands, until we've gone too far, and you can't get it back.
Yeah.
You know, Jason, I've tried to point this out, but I'll do it again at risk of boring people. 2020 is the last election we're going to have. It's the last one. Because today, Trump's base, the Republican Party has no base. Trump does. They don't. Trump's base is made up disproportionately of people 55 plus, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's just call it what it is.
Right.
The Democrats have the millennials, all right? So let's take 4 years from 2020, 2024. Here's what's going to happen in 2024 that I can tell you today, guaranteed. In 2024, there's going to be a huge number of our age group that are not going to be around.
Right.
Our age group is going to keep going down. 2024, the millennial segment of society is going to increase.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2024, if provisions have not been made, in 2024, whatever you're seeing the millennials and AOC and all of these people we call nutbags, everything that you're seeing them do to talk about today that seems outlandish, guess what? In 2024, it's going to be real. It's going to be real. And if you want proof of that, just in 2016, Bernie Sanders was the only person standing up and proudly bragging that he was a socialist.
Right.
He was the only presidential candidate that had ever bragged about socialism to some degree.
Right.
Only one. Today, 2019 to 2020, the entire field is using socialism.
Yeah.
Except one, that'd be Biden. But Biden's just doing what's always been done, which is don't use the word socialism, you dummies.
Right.
Don't use socialism.
Well, but there's many candidates that are fearful to speak out against socialism because it's gaining so much popularity among voters,
Right.
just as even as a buzzword.
Yes. I know.
It's like through the looking glass.
The world looks. Yeah, think about what the world looks like in 2024. Jason, think about it.
Yeah.
If we progress with the acceptance of socialism that we have actually seen since 2016 with Bernie Sanders to today's list of candidates, if we progress at that rate in 2024, there will be no doubt that we will have a country of people that are perfectly content to go with socialism.
Yeah.
And we prefer it. By the way, the poll that I saw this morning, 41% of the people polled were in favor of socialism. 41%. That should scare every person to their knees that know what I know, and I know you do, about the history of socialism and what it does to people and to countries. And we today are suffering from a judicial system that is certainly applying the socialist type product. I guess that's what you'd say. I mean, it's actually doing it. And then one of the other signatures you have is your ins and outs. In socialism and communism, guess what? You're either an in or an out.
What do you mean? In the in crowd?
Well, you're either in with the government or you're out.
Right. The elites. That's the
You
part
don't
I
have
wanted you to talk about.
Except it's called the collective.
Right.
You're either
Collectivism,
part of the
right.
collective or you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, you're going to be punished. In some way, somehow, you're going to be punished.
Right.
We're seeing that today. And if you're a part of the collective today, which we're going to call the deep state, the Democrats, the Clintonistas, whatever you want to say, if you're with them, you see outlandish things in law. You see them dismissing Hillary before they began an investigation. You see them giving leniency in their testimony that they're giving. I can't think about it right now, but they actually
immunity.
took people's statements. Immunity. They gave immunity to people.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And you're just Hillary alone. Let's don't talk about all the possible stuff. Let's talk about the stuff that is. Hillary destroyed 33,000 emails that were subpoenaed.
Yeah.
She knew they were looking for, and they destroyed them, beat up her cell phones or everything.
Smashed them with
destroyed
hammers.
evidence.
Yeah.
They did it. And not one simple misdemeanor charge of any sort.
Yeah. Now, Larry, you just raised an important point, this destruction of 33,000 emails. I have found that the use of the number 33 is very frequently included in news articles. I feel it's a steganographic marker, a coded message that is basically put into news articles and various public communications that is done so in such a way that it informs people who are in the know that, hey, we got this under control. Like 33,000 emails, that seems like an incorrect number. I think it's many more than that. There was an article today, I'm trying to get to it here, but all these ad blocker accounts don't want me to do that. There was an article today in the Toronto Sun, or maybe it was yesterday, talking about the murder of Barry and Honey Sherman, who were the billionaire couple associated with that generic pharmaceutical company that were found dead, hanging by belts in their incredibly lavish home. And the home is being demolished, which is always interesting considering the murder remains unsolved. And there was a neighbor who came forward with some information about a 911 call. I'm trying to find it. The article had a 33 in it that I just found very remarkable. I know it sounds weird, but if you start looking around for the occurrence of the number 33 in articles that seem strange or about stories having to do with things related to the deep state, I wonder if you'll find what I have found, which is that that number appears just an inexplicably coincidental number of times.
Jason, you talk about memorality, and hey, buddy, I don't know anything about it. It is odd. It's odd.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's a science of numerology. I'm not suggesting that it's numerology. I'm just saying that's a code. That's a message that someone puts out in the newspaper where the average person sees it and says, oh, 33,000 emails. But somebody else sees it and says, okay, 33,000 emails. We know Hillary's people have this under control.
Right. Could be. here again, that's something, Jason, that I don't want to comment on because I just truly don't have enough. I just don't know about it.
When you were working with the Clintons,
no.
But when you were working with them, Larry, was there any coded communication that went on?
You bet.
How did that go? Talk to us about that.
Well, all right, if Clinton was talking to people and he started taking questions from the press, and we didn't want him to, because when you answer a question from a reporter trying to stop them, you think it's over, but when you answer a question, then guess what? They come right back with another question. Then you answer it, and then they come back with another.
Right.
So we would always tell Bill, remember tennis. Tennis. Because there was a rule I had given Bill, which was in our playbook, don't play tennis. And by that, what I meant was, if you're out there on a tennis court and the guy hits you a ball and you lay your racket down, ball goes by you, the guy gets a little perturbed. He picks up another ball, serves it to you, and if you don't hit it back, it goes past you. He gets mad still.
Right.
And keeps getting madder. Well, the point is, though, you know what you're not doing? You're not playing tennis.
Right.
And it's the job of reporters, people like you, to get politicians in the game of tennis. If, you know yourself, Jason, if you could get a politician to answer one thing, you got him for the next question.
Mm-hmm.
You see it every day. With
And
Trump,
they do
they're always
ignore.
asking for follow-up questions.
Yeah. You're right. It's like getting your foot in the door, and they love to ignore it.
Mm-hmm. So we had playing tennis. We had 2-pound lobbing fat. Whenever we dropped that word in or dropped that in, that meant, that's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not being believable. That's what we were trying to tell him. You're going off telling a story and it don't even make sense. So the point being, the 2-pound robin is a 2-pound robin fat. Well, a 2-pound robin is fat, which means if you're out there and you're telling a lie, and you don't realize it, but you're actually going overboard, you're the 2-pound robin.
Got it. Now, of course, Larry, in your day, in the 70s and 80s, there really wasn't email communication among regular people.
No.
How did you typically communicate? Was it phone communications, in-person communications? Were there any coded communications going on in that regard?
No. But let me explain. In that day, you're right, there was not like email and stuff. You either wrote a note and gave it to somebody, those little pink notepads.
Right.
Or, or
Post-its, yeah.
But posters or the phone. But the reason we didn't do that is because we didn't have to. The only organization that could monitor the phones that could get us in trouble was the state police or any prosecutor in the state, and we had all those under our thumb. We could do anything we wanted, Jason, so it's not fair to compare today to then.
Right.
We had nothing to fear. As a matter of fact, that's what I've been pointing out about the Democrats. You'll notice today they have nothing really to fear. The media, you don't see the media playing a game anymore. They're just out front. They have nothing to fear. What are you going to do to us? Same thing they're going to do when they shut down the 4 platforms on the internet during the election for conservative talk or speak. They're just going to shut it down. What are you going to do? You can't do anything.
Right.
They control it all.
Well, I mean,
That's why we're so dangerously close.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Well, the thing that people
let
need
me
to
ask you
do.
this. We have 3.
Yeah.
Well, we have 3 branches of government: executive, legislative, and judicial. Correct?
Yeah.
All right. Now, we know they have the judicial branch. They've got it fully under their thumb. Hold on just one second. Talk for a second. I got to take this.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, Larry taking a little call there for a moment. But the thing that people can do to combat this censorship is to support independent media. And one of the ways you can do that is by going to nicholslive.com and supporting Larry. If you click on the donate tab, it's going to bring you right to all of his sponsorship information, you can send him money over PayPal using nicholslive@aol.com, or simply putting cash in an envelope and mailing it to Larry in Conway, Arkansas. We've got you back, Larry?
Yes. Now, what I was going with what I was saying about during the election, I have already been told, not from anybody in the administration or anything, but from people that are very much connected and know, that the four major platforms, Twitter, YouTube,
Facebook.
Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and
Maybe
whatever the other one
Instagram?
is. No, Google. Google,
right.
Facebook, Twitter.
YouTube, right.
They're going to absolutely, listen to me, they're going to absolutely, once the campaign gets going, they are going to shut their platforms off from anybody coming out talking bad about Democrats, good about Trump. They're going to shut it down. Just literally going to shut it down. And the point is, what are you going to do about it?
Right.
There's nothing we can do about it. And there's nothing anybody can do, even if you wanted to do something legally. Well, you don't have standing there, but even if you did have standing, it couldn't possibly get to a court before the campaign's over.
Right.
That's why your program is so important, folks. That's why you've got, please come on board with Jason and what your system there can.
Yeah. Thank you, Larry. It's patreon.com. People can go to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And like Larry is saying, these major platforms that everybody has come to enjoy for quote unquote free are under the total control of the advertisers and the billionaire corporations that run them. Part of the way that you can take control of the information that you get to see is by sponsoring Crowdsource the Truth, and you're going to enjoy a ton of sponsor-only content on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Larry, I want to thank you for always mentioning that, and also...
Well, I know, but I'm not kidding about it, though. I mean, I'm not doing it to be patronizing to Jason, folks. I'm not at all. But we're going to have a communication system during this campaign. There's going to have to be some place where the truth can get out, because it's going to be a total mess. You're going to have Trump being impeached. You're going to have candidates doing everything they can to destroy Trump. It's all going to go nuts. You're going to have the border going insane. You're going to have everything going on. Patreon and this program, Crowdsource the Truth, you have got to get on it. Now, even if, let me ask you this, if they shut down all these other things, will Patreon be shut down?
No, the way that I run the Patreon page, Larry, is the videos are coming from an alternate source that is not YouTube. And actually, Patreon, the Crowdsource the Truth Patreon page, was born out of necessity when social engineers basically orchestrated an attack on the YouTube account. That allowed me, or rather, that prompted me to create an alternative method to get the information out to people. So there's a lot of people who write to me and say, oh, this video is so important, this subscriber-only video is so important, you should release it on YouTube. And I understand how those people feel, but it undermines what we're trying to do. We're trying to build a larger network of viewers on Patreon, because it's, although it is also controlled by Patreon, and we have seen them take action against Carl Benjamin and certain other people, particularly through payment processing, Patreon now allows for direct deposits, so that has hopefully been mitigated. Their ability to cancel through PayPal has been mitigated somewhat, but it's an alternative. Look, whatever we do, someone's going to try a countermeasure, so we need to work together to try to avoid having this information shut off from the public.
Absolutely, and Jason, I would hope that folks, as it gets more complicated during the campaign to use the internet, as it gets more complicated by them shutting down free speech in many ways, it's important to get on with Jason now. Get on with Crowdsource the Truth now. And heaven help us if they do something to trick it to where it can't be on it. At least Jason will have you in our system so we can let you know what methods we're going to have to go to.
Yeah.
If we
Now,
had
Larry,
to
it was
change.
it was an amazing prediction that you made about the reparations and all that sort of stuff. But you're not a soothsayer, right? You're just sort of reading the writing on the wall. And when we look back over the past 2 years, what you're saying now seems to be kind of the same prediction model. You know, we've seen Alex Jones removed from social media. He was a major factor in getting the word out and spreading information about WikiLeaks and some of the other news items that opened up a lot of people's eyes.
Yeah, Jason, just like that, I told Alex Jones long before this shutting him down took place. I told him they're after you, and Alex, they're going to get you. They're going to take you off. Nah, no way. Well, they did. They did. And as far as my predictions, folks, these aren't predictions. I'm not a prophet. I don't wake up in the morning with a new epiphany of what's going to happen. And if I tell you something that is my opinion, you know, Jason, my rules are I'll say it's my opinion.
Right.
But I'm telling you, on the internet part, I would have never come up with that in a 10 million years. I know so little about the internet, but the source I have is absolute. I'm telling you, it's the real deal. Well, I wouldn't even be saying it because it's so outlandish. I'd be made a fool of. But it's coming.
I think you're spot on, Larry. We've seen lots of signs of it, and it's not good news. So hope we can make it through that. And you're right, they're waiting for the right moment to shut it down so that legal action won't work and people won't have time to build up alternative networks, and then they're going to flood these traditional networks with information that's favorable towards them. It's amazing how technology has basically, taken over the political landscape. It's interesting, and it changes the strategy, it changes the dynamic. You know, Larry, I think we can't understate the way in which Robert David Steele planted that seed, that turd in the punch bowl of InfoWars with his slave children on Mars comment. That was, one of the shots fired in the war against InfoWars.
Yep. Look, guys, we're fighting for the life of our nation. You understand? We're fighting for the life of our nation. And this is no time for people to do what I see way too much of on the internet. People coming up with this concept that they think is real and putting it out, and then it spreads all over, and everybody thinks there's going to be 100,000 indictments and trials and Gitmo and, the whole 9 yards. This is not the time for that. This is real. There's enough stuff that you can reach out and touch with your own hands that should scare the bejesus out of you. It's there. It's here.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I assure you, anyone come this campaign season, anybody that stands in the way of the deep state, what I know to be the progressive movement, anybody that stands in the way of the progressive movement, the way it did when it stopped Hillary, they're not going to let it happen again. They're not.
Yeah.
And if people are feeding themselves information through the internet, and we think we have an opening there to where we can share the truth, you better hang on, because they're not going to let that go on. They're not going to let that go on.
They learn pretty quickly from their mistakes, right?
Yes, they do. And I'm telling you, the media, you can't, I challenge any one of you out there, tell me what could ever happen now that you would ever believe the mainstream media, again, as being a credible source of information. Tell me how could that ever happen now?
Yeah.
They've played everything, they laid everything on the table. It's win or win for them. And they're not going to lose, they think.
Yeah. Larry, we're just about out of time, and I don't want to spring a question on you that will open up an entire field, because this is kind of unrelated to our topic and what you and I speak about in general. But Jonathan is in the comments, and he wants to know if you know anything about secret Soviet technology and UFOs. Perhaps we could discuss that in the future if you do.
Well, and maybe someday we'll talk about it. But I can tell you this. I'll tell you this. If the UFOs, if spacemen want to come and land in America somewhere, they ought to land in my backyard. Because I have already one time tried to tell people something that's hard to believe, right, and what it's done to us. So if they did land in my backyard, I'd never say a word. Never. But do I believe? Yeah.
Well, I think the question...
things I have seen.
Right. I think the question was focused maybe more on, did you glean any kind of, generally unknown information during your time working with the Clintons? But you were basically out by the time Bill actually became president, right?
Right. But I can assure you, there is sufficient evidence that I have actually seen that proved to me, so you just have to take it at that, that there are some people somewhere and they do buzz around here. Now, no, I don't believe they're lizard people. No, I don't believe there's, 10-foot tall giants living in caves. That's not what I'm talking about.
Right.
But there definitely is, my opinion, there definitely is some people or something from somewhere buzzing around, and they have buzzed here.
Perhaps a topic for another day.
It would be.
Yeah.
It would be.
Well, Larry, I want to thank you for joining me again today. I want to thank all of our generous sponsors, and I want to remind people to go and visit nicholslive.com, financially sponsor Larry by sending him money over PayPal. You can use his PayPal address, nicholslive@aol.com, or you can just put some money in an envelope and mail it to him in Arkansas. We really appreciate the support, and as Larry pointed out, Crowdsource the Truth is a community-sponsored news resource. So if you're watching the show, even if you watch just once a week, $2 a month, $5 a month, it's as much as you would pay for a newspaper or a cup of coffee, and it helps keep the show going. Couldn't do it without the sponsors. Larry, I also couldn't do it without you. Thanks again for joining me today. We'll be back with you next week.
I'll give you one teaser. I was a part of a task force that looked into the UFO stuff.
Wow.
That I will tell you.
Well,
what that has to do with the price eggs in China, I don't know. But
people want to hear about that, Larry. Perhaps that's our topic for next week. But for now, thanks everybody for watching. And don't forget to tune in tonight to More Pain, only on Patreon. That'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern. See everybody then. Thanks for watching.